today we're going to be talking a bit more about the EU funding opportunities, and we have three panelists who are expert in three different EU funding programs. So they're going to give some information about their specific programs, who can be involved, how you can get involved, and some tips about working on EU projects. I'm going to first ask them to introduce themselves, and then we'll move to talking about the programs. So Florence, if I could start with you.
Sure. Thank you, Deirdre. My name is Florence McGee, and I work at Lurgus, which is the National Agency for the Erasmus Plus program. I'm the Support and Development Officer, so I work with organizations to develop their projects and access the funding in the VET sector, so vocational education and training.
Thank you. And Patrick?
Hi, yes, my name's Patrick Lansley. I'm based within the Irish Universities Association on Merrion Square here in Dublin, and I'm what's called the national contact point for Horizon Europe Cluster 2, Culture, Creativity and Inclusive Society, which I think I'll explain in a moment, so I won't go into that now.
Thank you. Yvonne?
Hi, everyone. So I'm Yvonne Halpin. I'm the national delegate and one of two national contact points for the European Union's Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, or the MSCA. I'm also the head of the Irish Marie Skłodowska-Curie office, which is based in the Irish Universities Association, and it's funded through a partnership with the Irish Research Council, which is now being merged with SFI into the new funding agency, Taoiseach Éireann Research Ireland.
Thank you. So we'll return to you, Florence. If you could talk through the specific funding programs that Lurgus and you connect with, and give some more information about those and how people could get involved or get more information on those.
Sure. Thank you, Deirdre. And I believe there's a slide that could be shown. I decided to put that a bit in writing. Now, the Erasmus Plus program as a EU program is very large. It's 26 billion, and it is about lifelong learning for professional and personal development. So there's a lot of pockets to it, but I want to focus on those cooperation partnerships that we just witnessed through those projects that Learnovate is involved in. So to give you a flavor of how this project works, they're really about developing together, co-creation, innovative practices with European partners. I'm going to give you how it works, just to give you an idea of whether it could be good for you. But again, there's so many other streams of funding within the Erasmus Plus program. You can look on the Lurgus website. So those cooperation partnerships, they can be accessed by any type of organizations. You don't need to be a university. They can be offered to businesses, charities, or universities, just not individuals. But you must be really active in Ireland on the sector that you're going to apply under. So when you're based in Ireland, in terms of what we call Erasmus fields or sectors, it's really going to be referred to the project that you're proposing. So one organization may have projects in different sectors, as you've seen with the different projects before. So we have the adult education sector, which is informal, non-formal learning. We have the schools education from early years to secondary school. So Lurgus doesn't deal with higher education. Vocational education training, which is professional skills development and the VET sector, and then youth and sports. The priorities of the Erasmus Plus program are what we call the pillars. They're the reason for those projects. Why the funding is there is to affect those changes in those big four priorities that are across the Union. We have digital transformation, we have diversity and inclusion, we have environment, the fight against climate change, and then common values, civic engagement, EU values, participation. So it's very important. So projects can choose to be one of these four priorities, and we also have sectoral priorities. And then I'm going to complete my very short introduction to give you a flavor of the two types of projects that we have under those partnership for cooperation. Those projects are they're match funded, but the project budget that you're putting forward will be that's what's funded, and you get most of the budget in advance of starting the project as well, so that you're able to work with your partners on starting the project. So for our small scale projects, you can start with a minimum of one other partner in the union. And that can be as large as you want it. It can be 6 months up to 2 years. So these are quite short punctual projects. And in terms of funding envelope, is 30,000 or 60,000. We now work in what's called the lump sum funding model, which means that you design a project for a certain amount of budget, and then within that budget, you are quite flexible in how you do it. So the small scale is really for the benefit of your organization and your learners. So it can be working with one person on something, one other partner on something very experimental. It's designed for newcomers to Erasmus+, but also newcomers maybe to EU funding or larger funding that is not your normal local funding. So we have very exciting projects under those small scale projects. And then the large scale projects are the projects we just witnessed. They tend to be larger. There's a minimum of 2 other countries in Europe on top of Ireland. They can be from 1 to 3 years. And as you can see, the funding envelope is larger, from 120,000, 250,000, and we just saw 400,000 project. The impact expectation there is larger and is proportional to the level of funding. So we hope to see some resources developed for the benefit of the sector. So I'm not going to go more in detail, but I hope that kind of gave you really a whistle stop tour on what's possible at really practical level for Erasmus+. Thank you.
Thank you, Florence. I'm going to move directly on to Patrick, who's talking to a different program under the EU funding, to Horizon Europe. And Patrick, if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you very much for that. So the area that I look after is under an area of European funding called Horizon Europe. So that is more explicitly about research and innovation, slightly different from Erasmus, where there's more of a focus on education. And the particular area that I look after, it's called Culture, Creativity and Inclusive Society, and it fits into one of 6 what we call clusters, which talk about global challenges. So they're very thematic areas of research. So there's areas which cover, for example, health, security, digital technologies, environment, food, etc. And within this, the funding calls will all be they're very targeted calls. So they are specific issues that the European Commission wants to address, and they see that more research is needed into how best to address those processes, and that's where we come in. The program supports research across 3 particular, or my element of the program works across 3 particular areas. So one is about democracy. So that's looking at public faith in institutions, ensuring that people are engaged in democratic processes, particularly people from hard-to-reach communities. And it also starts talking about sort of public sector administration and so forth, and the best ways of organising these procedures to be, to have connected societies. The second area is about creative industries and cultural heritage, so both sorts of improving the international competitiveness of European creative industries. It is quite instrumental in this approach, but also about protecting cultural heritage, looking at how our shared cultural heritages can connect societies together, which is very important. The third area, which is probably most of interest to people in this room, is looking at societal transformations. So this is particularly focused on changes brought about by green and digital transitions, which are happening at the moment, but also through other processes of democratic change. And they particularly here look at the world of work, the world of social welfare, etc., and also education within that. So education is a really important element of that, and we have seen particular calls on that. So just as an example, there was a call back in 2021 which was called Integration of Emerging New Technologies into Education and Training. So obviously that's going to be very much in the wheelhouse of people on this call. I would note, though, I mean, if you are interested in participating, I wouldn't sort of wait for the perfect call to come along. There are definitely other opportunities. So just as an example, if you have projects which focus on promoting democratic participation in certain areas of urban planning, which I think has come across in the past, if you want people to engage with urban planning, you need to teach them how they're able to do that. So I think that that would be an area that education providers can definitely get into, even if it's not maybe your core focus. The projects here, they will typically take from 3 to 4 years, and they'll have budgets of around 3 million. Now, a key part of this, you must have a bare minimum of 3 partners who represent 3 different European member states or associated countries. So associated countries, for example, the UK, Norway, and actually Canada and some other further afield countries. In practice, though, there'll normally be quite a few more than that. You'll probably get about 8 to 12 participants. Any legally incorporated entity can apply, so similar to what we were saying about Erasmus there. So you'll typically get a consortium that involves universities, charities and NGOs, SMEs, and possibly large industry, maybe public sector bodies or other civil society groupings. And it's really very dependent on what the project wants to achieve as to exactly what that consortium will look like. One thing I'd note is that different people within the consortium would have very different roles. So it might be that if you're a relative beginner, you won't actually have to do all that much within the project, or indeed the application process of the project, which is probably more important here. It will often be led by sort of larger institutions. So just for example, universities with research offices sitting behind them.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Patrick. I'll move on to Yvonne.
Thanks, Deirdre. So I will try to give you a kind of another whistle-stop tour, brief overview of another part of Horizon Europe, which Patrick just referred to there. So I will talk to you about the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, or the MSCA. And this is a program under Horizon Europe, which provides really great opportunities for organizations of all types and all sizes to source funding to support research and innovation activities, and really to reinforce collaboration in research and innovation between academic and non-academic organizations as well. And that term, non-academic organizations, it's really broad. It's anything from commercial entities, big and small, to non-profit organizations such as charities, NGOs, hospitals, public sector, you name it. And the Commission really strongly encourages the participation of the non-academic sector in the MSCA schemes as well. But at the core of the MSCA, it's all about talent. So these funding schemes, they aim to foster world-class research training, as well as attractive career development and knowledge exchange opportunities. And that's through the mobility of researchers across international borders and across sectors and indeed disciplines as well. So related to this, a kind of core priority of the MSCA is to prepare researchers for career opportunities across sectors and kind of in particular outside of the traditional academic career path as well. So there are different levels of participation, like the other programs presented here, and it's really depending on your needs as an organisation and your capacity and experience as well in European funding. So, for example, an organisation can decide to lead one of these proposals to an MSCA funding scheme, or indeed a lower barrier to entry is to be a partner in a proposal which is led by another organisation. And in terms of the types of projects funded, well, I think the key thing to say here is that the MSCA funds research projects. So it's not kind of funding for business as usual activities or operational activities. So that's just something to point out. But a really attractive feature of the MSCA is that it's known as a bottom-up programme. And what that actually means is that applicants who are writing these proposals, you choose the topic of your proposal and you choose the problem that you want to address. So the schemes are open to projects across all disciplines. So in contrast to other areas of Horizon Europe, which are very top-down, very thematic, this is really attractive for organizations and for researchers because it's open to all projects. So there are several different research and innovation schemes under the MSCA umbrella. And just to give you a flavour, these include, for example, it's known as the postdoctoral fellowships scheme, but what this does, it funds individual grants of between kind of 200 and 300,000, where an organisation applies with a pre-identified researcher to undergo a kind of 2 to 3 year research project. Then there are larger consortia type schemes, which are funding kind of multi-million euro projects, similar to what Patrick was mentioning. They could be anything between kind of 1 and 4 million euro for a project that's 4 years in duration. But the amount of funding coming to an organisation, of course, will depend on the level of participation in the project. But a couple of examples of these consortia type schemes include the Pan-European Doctoral Training Networks. And what these fund are cohorts of PhD researchers which collectively are addressing a research problem. And organisations can participate in these networks by recruiting researchers directly if you have the capacity to do so. Or indeed, you can participate by hosting researchers for secondment periods or being involved in supervision or training activities. And then another type of scheme is the Staff Exchanges Grant, which funds existing staff within organisations to engage in kind of pan-European and often global research and innovation projects, which are implemented via short-term secondments or exchanges to other countries and sectors. So depending on the scheme and the level of participation, up to 100% funding is provided to cover salaries, other costs like research costs or training or travel, and sometimes the cost of managing participation in the project as well. So I'll leave it there.
Great. Thank you very much. I mean, there's lots of really interesting opportunities you've all described there. I realise we're getting short on time because there's so much. I mean, European funding is so wide, and we're trying to give people a taste on this. If I could ask just for everyone to give just one quick, what would be the next step if you're interested in finding out more? And I know we're going to be sending out information and links afterwards, but maybe we'll go back to you, Florence. Just what would be, if people are interested in finding out more, where would be the first place for them to go in terms of your program?
Well, if you're interested in the Erasmus Plus program for education training or youth and sport, I would, of course, refer to the Lurgus website. We have a lot of training and events all over Ireland, either online, but also physically. We go and meet potential organization, potential applicants to explain, the benefits of taking part in Erasmus, and there's a lot to learn. So I would refer to our websites and social media as well, but also please contact us directly if it's something that you think would be of interest to you in the coming months. We're always open to just have a chat and see what fits best your organization.
Great. Thank you. I could say also following you on Eventbrite means that you get notification of your next events, which is very useful. Patrick, how would people find out more about Horizon Europe if they're interested? You're on mute there, Patrick. Sorry.
So I've passed on some links which I think will be distributed after, which will be useful. I think one thing to note is at the moment there are no open published calls, so we're looking at the development of a work programme for calls which will have deadlines in probably September in 2025, and they're getting sort of gradually sent out to people. And so I think keeping an eye on that space will be very useful. What I would say is I think if you are interested in properly getting involved, there's two people to contact. One of them is me, because I think it's easier to talk through some of these things rather than to read them on big screen, particularly because of the size of them. But also, I mean, if you've got links into universities or similar networks, as I say, all of these things really need to be run by fairly large-scale operations or very specialist operations. So I think speaking to researchers within your area and just talking about what they may be able to, where you might be able to partner with them would be really useful.
Great, thank you. Yvonne?
Yeah, thanks. So I know Louise has popped the link to our website into the chat there. So that's probably a good place to start to get more information on the different schemes, and our contact details are there as well. We have a whole suite of resources to help interested parties and applicants in the an application stage, but even before that, if you're just interested in finding out more and seeing if it's something that you want to explore. Myself and my colleague Jane Carrigan, we are very happy to meet with organisations who are interested one-on-one. You can contact us directly to do that. But we also have a number of resources, like we have short 10-minute videos recorded, which give a more in-depth overview of the different schemes available under the MSCA. We also run webinars, they're all recorded, and we offer things like proposal review services, and we collaborate with colleagues across Europe to produce proposal writing handbooks for each of the different MSCA schemes, and they're really helpful because they go through proposal templates section by section and tell you what you should kind of be thinking to include in each of them. So I think our website, our social media channels, and it's a good place to start. And as Patrick said, if you have connections, you know, into academia, if you're from outside of academia or vice versa, talking to your partners there is a good way to start as well.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Obviously, it's great to hear there's so much support available, and there are those resources online, and also connecting directly with you.